This is Roy Haggerty, and this is part 4 of a video demonstrating some underlying features of my application. In part 3, I concluded with some staffing level examples for American against comparables. I'd like to return to the objective accounts. Let me just collapse this. Whoops. And let's look at something here. Let's look at benefits. And we'll look at employee benefits and related as a percent of total payroll. And let's look at quarterly presentation here. And it returns the data here is well, American Airlines looks like it exceeds all the others. We can also look at per index it per employee, all service region. Let's see what that amounts to. This shows about just shy of $28,000 per employee for American Airlines on the high end compared with everybody else. And let's go to something else here. Let's look at, well, how about food and beverage, and we'll look at on a per passenger basis quarterly. Let's see what that looks like. Here's American, a little over $5 per passenger spends on. We can also look at let's see, services purchased. Let's go to insurance, and insurance and per fleet seat. Insurance includes all property and liability, including third-party liability insurance. And here's American Airlines per fleet seat at about $213, and that's mid-range. Looks pretty good. Let's move to something else here. Let's see if we can find there. Let's look at passenger commissions, all service, quarterly, get data. And here's American mid-range there. A lot of information. I know sometimes it takes a bit to get used to drilling through this, and I tell you the truth, you can spend many hours looking through this. Let's move to something a little different. Let's look at the income statement, some of the items income statement. I'm going to move back to the American Airlines collection as a standalone, and let's look at income statement, operating revenue. We'll look at passenger revenue per, well, we'll look at it per RPM. It's a sort of a traditional way to look at it. Let's look at annual data. So this is domestic service. And here's American Airlines again, showing as a standalone, showing some improvement, nearly 12% over this period of time. Now, obviously, as a standalone, we'd rather compare it against some comparables. One thing we can do is we can move down to the American Airlines narrowbody with surrogates collection, or correction, it's content holder. And let's look at income statement related, same thing here, passenger revenue per RPM, all service regions, and here is annual data. Now this compares it against the Eagle and executive. Here's American Airlines. Okay. And so we want to really move down here and really look at some mainline comparables, moving to legacy, income statement, operating revenue. Let's see what this looks like against its comparables. Domestic service, annual. We're looking at the annual data now. Here it is, and here's American Airlines right at mid-range. Looks like around 13 cents per RPM. Okay. Let's look at ancillary passenger revenue. Of course, ancillary passenger revenue shows us the pre-booking fees, excess baggage, and miscellaneous revenue. And we'll look at, well, let's look at percent of passenger revenue. Domestic, annual, get data. American Airlines just shy of 7% compared to, let's say, Delta and Northwest near 16%. So they're lagging behind on that account item. We can also move down to operating expenses, and let's look at well, passenger service. And of course, this is in flight, and we can look at, well, traditionally this is RPM driven, but let's look at it on a per passenger basis. Here it is. It's about 13. Looks like about $13 per passenger. Kind of mid-range for American. We can look at sales and promotion. And what we're looking at now, these are all, of course, as you know, functional accounts. And this is showing the total for the functional account. But sales per, well, let's look at RPMs. And again, this is sort of RPM driven. Let's look at the annual data. A little low on that. Okay, looks competitive. And we can look at, oh, I don't know. Here's depreciation. Let's look at these non-cash items, and we'll do that. These are considered ASM related. So, domestic, annual. And here's depreciation and amortization. Again, that looks pretty competitive for American. We can also look at, let's look at total. We can look at total effective cost. Now total effective cost includes some aircraft finance interest in this, because if an operator is actually operating airplanes that are substantially leased, and another carrier has financed this aircraft, there's going to be a bit of a disparity. But we can look at, let's look at something a little different here. Let's look at it. What per plane mile? That'll be something domestic, annual. There we go. Here it is, and here's American Airlines. That's mid-range on that. And let's see. We'll move down, and as I say, there's a lot of information in here. Let's look at income related, and we'll look at the net income. Let's look at domestic. So this is the net margin we're going to look at. This is a percent of revenue. It looks like here's American. That lower range. We can also break it out, and we can look at international service. We'll get that. And American really looks like it's, for instance, Continental looks like it's doing pretty well internationally, but looks like American is falling behind with nearly a 5% negative margin on that. Now, since these are all functional accounts and totals for functional accounts, we actually can break out those functional accounts and this expenses by function. And this, of course, this data comes from the P7 report. And let's look at, I don't know, passenger service. This is in flight. And we can actually look at flight attendant. Let's look at per block hour. Let's not look at all service regions. Let's keep it consistent and look at domestic service only. There it is at $375 an hour for American. We can also break out station operations, and let's look at, for instance, landing fees. Let's do it for a revenue segment. And we'll look domestic, annual. We'll get this data. Here's American at about nearly about $500 per landing. promotion and sales. Let's look at, well, we'll just look at reservation sales, and let's look at, well, to be a little different, we'll just look at it per passenger. Well, it's costing per passenger. Again, domestic service annual. So here's American Airlines at about $10, a little over $10 per passenger. We also have another account in the balance sheet accounts, and let's look at asset related. Let's look at working capital pool. And this, of course, as you know, working capital, current assets less current liabilities. And we'll look at we'll look at quarterly data. And here's American down at the lowest here. This is kind of interesting with Southwest. It fell off. I'm not going to follow that. We could pursue that if we wanted to. We could also look at, here's the current ratio for that. We'll look at quarterly data. Current ratio. And if we want to, let's collapse this. And let's look at, I don't know, return on capital. We can see that. And here's returns that. Now we've covered a lot of data here. We'll conclude. We'll continue with another powerful feature in the next video.